Okay, y'all, so we're fixing to go Facebook Live. Disabilities. I want to welcome you to this Facebook Live event hosted by the council, which is in attendance, and we are at the Marriott in Macon, Georgia. Today our speaker is Ron Wakefield. Ron is the director of the Division of Developmental Disabilities for the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities, which is a mouthful to say. So what we're going to do today is, the way this is going to work is we're going to let Ron talk for 45 minutes, and then we're going to open it up for remarks. The remarks will come from Facebook, and it will be moderated by Devika Rayo, and also the council members in the room. We will moderate questions, but first thing I want to do is welcome Ron.
Good afternoon, everyone. And let me just say up front, of all the things I've done in my 4 months, this is probably one of the most exciting things for me. I've been waiting for an opportunity to get in front of families and advocates, etc., so we can have a real live conversation. So I'm really excited to be here. If you don't see it and hear it, trust me, it's deep within. And again, I do want to say too, that this is the first time for me doing the Facebook live chat. It's also first time for GCDD hosting a Facebook live. So we're just going to jump in and go at it together. And the last thing I'll say before I get into my comments is that 45 minutes, y'all, I'm not going to talk for 40 minutes or 35 minutes. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But let me just give you a quick backdrop in terms of who I am. And I recognize that the providers across the state, odds are they absolutely know who I am. Because you know why? They get an opportunity to see me frequently and often. And one of the things that's always been on my heart is we're all doing this for who? We're doing this for you, for your loved ones, for your sons, for your daughter, and for those receiving services, we're doing this for you. And so it's always important as a state entity to be able to connect directly with you. I know we have lots of resources, lots of individuals and organizations involved with you, but there's just something about being able to see you, to talk with you, and to just touch each other that I think is real, and that's something that we should always never lose, and we should always foster. So that's, going back to my statement about excitement, that's why I'm excited to be here. So I'm fairly new in this position. It's only been around 4 or 5 months. And before that, my predecessor was Dan Howell, who served 3 years. And before that, it was Charles Lee. And before that, and before that. So this position tends, over the past number of years, to have a lot of changes. And my hope is that that will stop right here. So we'll see. But one of the things that drive us as a department is our current commissioner and our former commissioner. We have a vision statement, and it really talks about our ability to ensure that we have easy access to our services and to ensure that we have quality services for all. And whatever we do as an organization, that's what it should focus on. That's what it should always be about. And if we're doing something that is not about that, guess what, y'all? We want to hear about it, because that's what our focus should be. And that's what my Commissioner, Judy Fitzgerald, expects from me. That's what she expects from all the people who work for me. And for all the folks we have contracts with, that's exactly what the expectation is. So you see what my job is. My job is very clear. My job is to get that done. And I recognize that me by myself, my staff by themselves, we can't do it by ourselves. We need to work in collaboration and in partnership with others. And towards that end, I'm just going to talk a little bit about Eric Jacobson. You can't see him. You can only see me. But Eric and I, over the years, we never really knew each other that well. We may have seen our names in emails and stuff like that. But you know what? Over the past number of months since I've gotten in this position, Eric and I have met quite a few times. And just to show you the type of person Eric is, I'm sitting there one day just sitting back and we're just talking. And I said to Eric, you know what I'd love to be able to do? The one thing, as I said before, I feel connected with the providers, and I'm sure they feel connected with me. But the one thing that is just bugging me, I haven't been able to do it, is get connected with families. So that was the comment I made. End of story, right? I walk away, Eric sends me an email a couple weeks later. I looked at it and then moved on. And the question was, Ron, are you willing to travel anywhere? Or something to that effect. Sure, I'm willing to travel anywhere. I had no idea what Eric was trying to do. Then Eric pulled it together, pulled this together, and then he said to me, Ron, are you ready? Here's what I've done. I'm thinking, okay, there you go. It's the first for me, but I'm going to go for it too. So that's the kind of person Eric is. You present him with a problem, you present him with something that needs to be resolved. What does he do? He gets to it. He works on it. So, yeah. So that's Eric for you. And let me not say, I should be fair. In terms of the department, we have had forums, especially before the rollout of new waivers. And I'll point out one other person I see in the room, Marilyn Ellis. Because Marilyn, along with staff from my department, went all over the state before we rewrote the comp waiver, same thing with the now waiver, and just talk to folks, talk to families, talk to individuals, getting ideas and suggestions for what should be in the waivers going forward. So I just want to add, that's another partnership, that's another change. I know in the past, people always believed that the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities, I know it's a mouthful, Mitzi, tended to not work closely with the Department of Community Health. But I'm here to say to you, we have a commissioner now who works very closely with the commissioner of DCH, and the charge to all of us, and you can look at Marilyn to see if I'm saying the truth, the charge to all of us is that the expectation is as both departments are supposed to be working together as much as possible. So that's a good thing for you, that's a good thing for the state. So I hope you already see the types of partnership that we're starting to develop and we're starting to rely on going forward, because none of us are in this alone. And as I think of a family unit, you face so many hurdles, especially if you have a child with a disability, no matter what that disability is. From day one, you're facing an uphill battle. You're facing all kinds of challenges that constantly come at you. I look at your day. Your day is far different from mine. I don't have a child with a disability. But your day, you wake up, you think about that. In fact, some of you think about that during the night because you got to get up and you got to do some things with your child. So that's constantly your world. And as a state person, I need to understand that. I need to get that. That it's not about the way I view life. I view life a certain way. But I need to see life through your perspective, your lens also. Because what you're experiencing and what you're dealing with on a daily basis is far different from what I'm dealing with. And the bottom line for me is this: I'm here for you. That's the bottom line. We're here for you. So when we craft policy, etc., that has to be at the forefront of our minds. And I'll admit, sometimes when you're in the tower downtown, and you look out the window, you see life from a different perspective. And we still need to remain grounded. in what's relevant and what's important, and that we can get directly from you. So I hope you kind of understand why this is so exciting for me to be here, to see you, for you to be able to see me. I'll say one more thing. I was talking to Heidi earlier, Heidi Moore, and she's right back there. And you know, Heidi is saying to me that she'll mention to people my name, and they're looking at her, who is he? You know what, that should never happen. And it's not just about me. It's about the work that we're doing on behalf of you. So really, you should know who we are, and you should be able to know how to get in touch with us. And I think that's critically important. So, Eric wanted me, wow, all of that. I said I wasn't going to talk for 35, 40 minutes, right? All of that was my opening. I'm going to speed it up, don't worry. Eric wanted me to find out from me, what did I want to talk about? And I gave that some thought. And my response back to him is, I want you to get a glimpse of what my vision is for the future. And it sounds like my vision, but it's not really. It's all tied up in the comments I made earlier. For instance, it's really important to me, and let me just back up and say, I've been in Georgia for 12 years, so that's not a Georgia accent you hear. I used to tell people that's my Pennsylvanian accent, but then they looked at me funny because I lived in Pennsylvania for 26 years. I was actually born in Jamaica, but I've lived here longer than I lived there. The accent, I'm going to die with it. Don't ask me why, it just ain't going to go away. But I want you, when you look at me, not to see Jamaican, not to see Pennsylvanian, but I want you to see a Georgian. Because you know what? I love it here. And I feel and I believe in my heart that this is where I always want to be, and I represent, and I hope you feel that way as time goes on, that I represent what you believe in, because I absolutely do. So my past is my past, my current is my current, and my current is I'm a Georgian, y'all. So with that said, I came up through the regional system. We now call them field offices. And there's some families through the years that I've bonded with. Some I've never met. Folks will recognize my name and they'll say to me, oh, you are him. You're the person who helped me way back when. I can't even remember what I did, but I just take your word for it. I say that to say, not to pump myself up, because I'm no different from you all, from you are. I really am not. One of the things that's significantly important to me is responsiveness, customer service. I look at other departments, I look at other private sector organizations, and one of the things that distinguishes the good ones is just that. We can talk about policy, we can talk about process, we can talk about all that. But you know what? If we're able to be great at customer service, what a difference that would make. And I've heard families who, granted, they're facing the issues that I talked about earlier. That's daily life for them. And when you try to reach out to get some help, what do you get? You get this, you get that, you get, except to the right person or the right answers that you need. That's a priority for me. That's something that needs to change. We need to create an environment in which we as state employees recognize we're here for you. And that's the bottom line. The bottom line is we're here for you. Now, does that mean we're going to solve every problem? No. Does that mean you're going to get everything you want? No. But you know what? At least we're working with you on trying to find a solution or a resolution. So that's one of the things that's very important to me. There's some things that we're involved in now, and I'll go through them. Some of you may have heard about some of this already. Some people may not have. And we are looking at our website. As a department, overall, DBHDD, we have created a number of changes not for the sake of doing changes, but for the sake of bettering the way we do business. And we've created some new departments, and I won't go through all of that today. I'll just single some things out. And the very purpose of that is to ensure that we're, again, responsive, and we're keeping our stakeholders, etc., in mind as we do business. One of the things that's real important in terms of our department, we have a Department of Public Affairs. And what we're starting to look at, so let me just say, they're very, very interested in how this goes, this format. Because if this really works out really well, this is something that we'll try to implement going forward. I'm not saying we're going to do it. I'm saying I'll go back and say, guess what, you guys? It went really well. Let's see what we can do for the future going forward. So they are actively seeking ways to constantly give you information in a timely manner, as quickly as possible, information that's important for you. I know that there's some experts, not within the department, out in the field, that you rely on as families to get information. However, we want to make sure too that as a department, we're able to give you information as quickly as possible. So, of course, we're looking at our website. We're looking at ways to improve that. So that's something that's absolutely happening. I'm going to take a break for a second, and I'm going to look at Eric in terms of time check to let me know how I'm. Oh, okay. Because I realize while I'm standing here, I have so much to say that, my God, I'm probably going to go on forever. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. So that's one part. In terms of the IDD department, we looked at the various service lines, the various ways we touch individuals, the various ways we touch families. And for us, an important aspect of that is support coordination. And so last year, last July, and let me just say too, part of this, some of the things we learned from folks that were transitioning from the hospitals. And the things that we learned from that, we then ensure that if it works really well for a smaller group, and that's something important, we want to make sure the larger group of individuals receiving services also are a part of the good things. So that's also driving the way we change our system. So last year, we changed support coordination. We went out and we invited other agencies to come and join Georgia in our work because we wanted to provide oversight and follow-up and advocacy for individuals who are the most at risk within our population. Those individuals who have high medical or high behavioral needs that we need to ensure that we're partnering in a different way to ensure that the outcomes that are met for them is really positive. So that was a major system change last year. I understand when we do something, there's always a perfect way, and then there's another way. Now, we'll always try to do things as close to perfection as possible, but I guarantee you, it's never going to happen. So there are always issues and concerns that pop up. And I know last year when we did that, it was challenging and it was difficult for a number of people. Families probably did not fully understand why we made some of the decisions we made. But at the end of the day, I want to say to you that we wanted to ensure that we improve the quality part of our vision statement. That was the driving force behind that. So I say that to you. When we make changes within the system, and there's some things that probably aren't going as well as it should, we want to hear. I don't want you screaming and crying because, again, in my mind, I know what you're already going through, and I don't want to add an additional burden to your day and to what you're doing. We'd like to think that we're making life easier for you. We're making things a lot better not just when I say for you, I'm not talking about you, the parent, but also your child. And in a number of cases, no longer a child, but a grown adult. So that's the you I am referencing. That's why we do the things we do, because we want to fine-tune our system in such a way where there's absolute value for you in terms of the changes we're making. So that was one change we made. This year, July 1st, and these are some of the things, as I talk about, that we do try to put on our website, the DBHDD website, but there are probably other ways. When we meet with the participant-directed families and we make some changes, we do have a site on our webpage for them also, but we want to make sure that it's more user-friendly and more active. So we're constantly going to try and improve that. So this July, the next change was clinical oversight. And you may hear words like surveillance and all that. It's not what you think it is. We're not trying to spy on anybody. That's not what that is about. Again, we created a new department 2 years ago, the Department of Health and Wellness. And that's made a tremendous difference in the population of individuals transitioning from a state hospital. And I say that to say to you, I know it's going to make a tremendous difference for you also. Technically, in a nutshell, what we've done is there's a link that you can just text in, you can dial in to say, still, you follow your doctor's recommendation and your support system. But if there's some condition that requires follow-up and you need some assistance with that, let us know. Because we'll come alongside and we'll offer some level of support and guidance. That's what we're here for. We've done that with the hospital transition individuals, where we literally partner with providers. And what we want them to recognize is you raise your hand for some aid and assistance. We're no longer expecting you as a provider to go find all the solutions yourself. We recognize that there's some things that you by yourself just cannot do. Intensive support coordination, they're alongside you, they're working with you as a provider. There's some things that even within that context, you're still not able to find solutions or resolutions. So what we're saying now is, as a State Department, we're going to work alongside you to try and resolve some of those issues that are a barrier to the health of your sons and daughters. So that's something else. I know I'm running through things at a high level, but eventually I want you to be able to hear directly from members of my staff who are actively involved in the work. Unfortunately, they're not here today. It's just me. But again, this is a trial run. We'll see how this goes, and then we'll see how we can best communicate with you in the future. So keep all that in mind as I go along. The other thing that we are currently working on, which you may not see now, but eventually, if you don't see it, then we miss the mark. I'll be as upfront as that. If you don't see this eventually, we have totally missed the mark. And that's internal within the Department of Developmental Disabilities. A question I posed to a group over a year ago was simply this. Let's look at our processes. Let's look at the way we do things and ask ourselves this one question. Why? Why are we doing that? Is it because of federal guidelines? Is it because of Medicaid guidelines? And those are specific questions. If it's because of those, we don't have that much wiggle room. But if it's because Sally down the street said, you know what? It's a good thing for the department to do that, and then we instituted this process that's driving people crazy, something is wrong with that. So I wanted us to take a laser vision to all the things we're doing. Look at it, break it apart, and then build it back up. But the reason is we have, I don't think I've ever seen as many processes and steps and as I've seen now. There's a group right now that are trying to look at all our policies. We have policies here, we have policies there, and I'll admit, we need to make sure that the same policy we have here and the policy over here that relates to the same thing, that they do match together. So that's the kind of work we need to do. So that's the kind of laser vision I want us to take internally to look at everything. So I say that to say to you, there are certain changes that will happen from time to time, because that's what we're all trying to do. We're trying to simplify. Remember, easy access? We're trying to simplify our processes so it's not so complex to you as a family. It's not so complex to others in the community, that people, it's clear, it's transparent, you get it. You get what we're trying to ask for, you get exactly what we're looking for. We don't want to make it so complicated. And I'll stand there and confess, we have. We have made it complicated. And I'll even say more to that. We have what's called the regional offices, the field offices. Guess what, y'all? We've made it even so complicated for them that they don't even get it at times. So something is wrong with that. And so we need to simplify all those processes. So that's something that we're working on also. You may hear it been spoken as reorganization, etc. But we need to look at making ourselves as efficient as possible. Now, that's a promise. Let's see if I deliver, right? It's going to take work. It's not easy. It's easy for me to stand here and say stuff like that, but the proof is going to be in the results, right? When you start seeing it or not seeing it, that's the proof. So from time to time, I'll try to keep you updated as to what we're trying to do. And so you probably can give us better feedback. But that's one of the driving things that we're working on as we go. Now, there are a number of other priorities. And the way I finally looked at my staff a couple of weeks back, when they say to me, Ron, okay, what's priority number 1, priority number 2, priority number 3, priority number 4? Because we all want things to be as clear-cut as that. You know, my answer was, I can't give it to you that way. What I can tell you is, this is priority number 1 this week. And guess what? Next week, this is priority number 1. But I want us to be in the mindset that doesn't freak us out. But we create a level of flexibility that we're able to roll with the punches, and we're able to address things as they come up. Lastly, and I'll end here, I want to talk about the implementation of the comp waiver and where it comes, where it relates to families at this point. For those who participant directed, August 1 is a big date because that's when the increased rates will be rolled in for participant-directed families. And there's more. See, my staff are nervous. When I get down into the nitty-gritty, they get nervous because they don't really think I know exactly what I'm talking about. So what I try to do is I try to leave that for them. But this much I'll say, and this was cleared by them. It was. We have trained the fiscal intermediaries. We have trained support coordination. And I recognize, even with that sometimes there are going to be some hiccups. So we need to find a way to ensure that when there are hiccups like that, that you're able to reach out and say, we're having some hiccups. And the person in charge of participant-directed services, Tammy Watkins, feel free to reach out to her. And I'll say to you, if you're reaching out and you're still not getting the answers, then there are others that you'll reach out to. And I think what I'll do is, on our website, I'll make sure that you have a list of people that you're able to reach out to. Granted, I always want you to start with support coordination, but I don't want you battling to try and get an answer for an extended period of time. I want you to be able to get the answers that you want. And so we got to create a system where that's possible. So August 1st is a big day. There's some things that need to be done prior to that. And there was, I know there was some training and some families may have attended, but on our website, under the resource tab for participant directed, there's a webinar that I'll encourage you to go to. So that's the part that was cleared by my staff that I could say. Okay. So what I'm about to say is this. So we rolled out the new comp waiver, and we had the best intentions. We had feedback from people. We created some new services, therapist services, which I think is a great thing. However, there were some hiccups. There were some billing hiccups on the provider side. When we were getting started, I said to the providers, same thing I'm saying to you, is that I don't want them jumping off buildings. I don't want them running to the streets screaming. I want them to reach out to me and say, we have a problem here. And I say this to you, no matter what you think or you've heard about providers, I got to say this. To a person, to a provider agency, to a person, nobody jumped off any buildings. Nobody ran into the street screaming. But you know what? They didn't create a hailstorm when there were some problems, and there were some. They reached out to us. They absolutely did. I did get some text messages. I did get emails. But you know what? That was okay, because they were saying we have some issues and concerns that we need you to address. But it's the way that they did that that I so greatly appreciated. And I want to let you all know that the response to me was overwhelming. I did not expect that kind of a response from them. And I'm very appreciative of it. And as a result, I've talked about partnership a lot, but they showed it to me. And so it obligates me even more to ensure as we go forward that we do work in partnership, because there's some things that sometimes it takes more than one of us to resolve. So that's the atmosphere in which the new waivers were rolled out. Granted, even after I said all of that, there were some people that were concerned about certain things. And so we've had to make some adjustments. Again, this is not about us trying to dictate what life should look like for you. This is about, and when I say that, probably not on the individual level, but on a system-wide level, there are certain changes we can make on a system-wide level that as a family, as an individual receiving services, you're going to say, wait a minute, that didn't really benefit me. But you know what? Overall, we look at how we can benefit the larger group. So when you look at systems, that's important to keep in mind. However, back to what I was saying, so there were some things that did alarm some people, and we're still working through it. But I want people to recognize, I do not work well in a system that is alarmist, in a system that people just want to scream. I can listen. I've been there. I can sit and listen to you scream at me. I truly can. And I don't think I've ever retaliated. I'll go back and run myself into the ground afterwards, but I don't think I've ever retaliated. So I get that too. I get the raw emotion, because we're human. We respond and we react to certain things in certain ways. But again, I'm just talking as a system. I don't want us to be an alarmist. I want us to always, as a system, focus on your son and on your daughter. Just keep that laser vision there. That's what we all need to focus on. And how can we best remedy things for your son and your daughter? Again, as a system-wide look, that's how I want us to look at things. That's how I want us to work at things going forward. So sometimes I may say to you, I get it, your personal situation is very unique. This is what we can do, or this is what we can't do. There are going to be those conversations. But I want you to always say, but I get the bigger picture that you're trying to help as many people as you possibly can. Because that's always going to be our focus. And that's what, as a State Department, our focus should be. Now, I've said a lot. And I hope I've been clear. I tend to speak quickly sometimes when I get excited. And you remember as I started out, I did say I was excited to be here. And there's so much I could say and I wanted to say, but I think it's prudent for me to stop here. Just by looking at the body language in the room. And you see how quickly I was cheered, so that means stop. Again, I can't shut up, but I'll be quick. I just want to say thank you again for the opportunity. I know how busy your days are. I know what's constantly going on in your lives, that you're able to set aside some time to tune in, to listen to me. And I want you to leave with one thing. In terms of where my heart is really trying to find ways to ensure that we have dialogue, whether it's face-to-face or whether it's more technologically advanced. I think that's okay. But I do want to create those opportunities. So with that, again, thank you all for having me and for listening to me. Sorry. Oh, wow. Thank you all.
So we didn't get any questions from online, so we will open it up for questions in the room. Any questions from any council members or anybody in the room? Okay, I'll start with Heidi, and then we'll go to Renee. And Ron, I have some questions if nobody else does. So
that's fine.
Ron, you're a breath of fresh air. And I just want to say thank you on behalf of all the families. And I know there are a lot of them listening right now because I'm getting texts from them saying they're excited about what you're saying. So thank you.
Thanks,
my question to you is there going to be, and if you can't answer it, I understand, but it needs to be addressed.
Okay.
Okay? I'm throwing you kind of a difficult question from the get-go.
I don't expect anything different from you. And for those of you who are on Facebook, the next person asking a question is Renee. So if I can think of two toughest question asking people, there you go.
My question is, Ron, there's been a lot of changes with the waivers in children under the age of 21 and EPSDT and how that reflects and how we administer waivers in the state of Georgia. I'm very concerned for those families that are under the age of 21 right now on the processes and the things that they're being told on what services are available to them. Going through GAP, going through eventually getting on the waiver. Are they still going to be on the waiver on a wait list even though they're getting services? There's just a lot of concern in the community for those children under the age of 21 that don't have home and community-based services now but need them. And the regions are handling it differently depending on who calls into which region. So there needs to be consistency in the communication and how families get access to services. It's kind of a loaded question, but and I don't know if you can answer it, but it is something we got to work on. You were talking about processes and communication and all these things. It's something that has to be addressed pretty quickly because there's a lot of families that are very concerned, and we just need to let them know how do they get access to what services and where.
Great opening question. So I'm aware of the concerns and the issues. Now, my answer is not going to be complete because what I'm going to say to you is this. And we also recognize that dependent on which field office, they were confused about that also. And so what has occurred is this. When I talk about partnership, this is not something DBHDD can do by themselves. This is something that we needed to do in partnership with DCH. And so those conversations have started along with the field office staff to try and work at, because again, every situation is unique and different. And I think that was part of the issue the field offices were having and part of the communication that they received prior to that, because we were still trying to sort it through. So what's happening now is there are joint conference calls with DCH, with the field offices, to try and work through this. And I'm going to look to Marilyn to see if there's anything she wants to add. But that's where we are, because I think it's not totally resolved yet, but I know that this group is working on it. Is that fair to say, Marilyn? Is there more you want to add?
You know, I'm an engineer, so I think very analytically. I think like a process flow diagram. I think we need a complete communication plan about this on how families get access and where, because there is a lot of confusion, Ron, out in the state of Georgia right now, in particular for those families. And to be honest, I'm having a hard time understanding the process. So if I am, I know there's a lot of other families that are too. And we just need to be forthright on what the changes are and why, and how do families get that access.
Okay. So Marilyn can hold me accountable that we're going to go back and see. The question I'm hearing is this: regardless of what we're doing internally, we need to be able to communicate clearly what's going to happen so families are aware. Okay. Okay. That I know. Thanks, Marilyn. Okay, Renee. Oh boy, y'all, I'm shaking now.
Hi, Ron. So earlier this morning, we were talking about how we can create opportunity in Georgia for self-advocates, people who experience intellectual and developmental disabilities, to have more opportunity to use their voice and find opportunity to influence things in Georgia. So with all the changes and things that you're talking about, how are you guys intentionally including people who experience disabilities and also using your services as a way to help you make changes to those services and procedures?
Okay. Wow. So a couple of things, Renee. Let me start with this first, and then I'll come back just to say something about supported employment. So y'all remind me, if I stop, say supported employment to me, and I'll come back to that. And I'm glad Renee asked this question. It probably wasn't about that, but I'm going to take it there, because I don't want people to be scared when I say supported employment. Okay, so the first part of what Renee says, going back to my past, remember I talked about that Philadelphia connection? Okay. One of the memories I have is of a lady in her, don't hold me to this, y'all. Let's say, I'm lousy at ages, so don't hold me to this. If my wife was here, she'll correct me. She was probably in her 50s, and she came out of an institution. And this lady was so thrilled. Once she got into the community, and she discovered what life was, and she lived with a family, and within, I swear to you, within months, she was in control of that family. She was telling them what to do, when to do it, how to do it, where to do it. It was marvelous. And they were so responsive to her. That's life. But it didn't stop there. We created an opportunity for her to talk to others who probably didn't have some of the experiences she had. She shared where she came from and how she was living. And I was able to watch a group of folks with disabilities listen to her speak. There was nothing. I probably could have spoken for a year. It wouldn't have made a difference. When she got up and spoke, you should have seen the dynamic way they responded to her. That's what I picture. So a few weeks ago, a group approached me about an opportunity for a self-advocate, and I jumped at it. We're working out the details now, but an opportunity for a self-advocate to work alongside me, for a self-advocate to be with me in the department, to say, Ron, what the heck are you talking about? What are you thinking of doing? So there's a group now working to find that person that's going to be with me. Now, my staff look at me and say, look at all this stuff you're running around doing. How are they going to keep up with you? We'll figure out a way. But I want that person to be able to speak to us in a way. When I'm here, I want that person right by my side to say, I don't know what he's talking about, or, yeah, I know what he's talking about. So that's, when I talk about life experiences, that's my life experience. And so when they said whatever they said to me, that's a picture I have. Now, if it doesn't work out that way, and it works out some other different way, I don't care. I want that person with me. So, Renee, to your point, I want that voice within the department being able to speak to some of what we're doing. And eventually, there's also a group, I cannot recall the name, through Georgia State, that they're working with self-advocates and giving them the skill set that they need to be able to speak, to join groups, to join committees. And I'm not going to pick on anybody, but that's what we want to see. We want self-advocates to have a strong voice in our system. I hope I didn't go on too much. Okay, I remembered, supported employment. So let me say this to you, as families, and I know as families, you're all about what's best for your son or your daughter. Some things are scarier than other things. But let me tell you, I've been across this state, and I've seen people like your son and daughter who are working in a regular job in the community. I've listened to them talk. You should see the sense of excitement. You should see the self-worth that they're just projecting. To me, that's awesome. That's the type of opportunities we want to create for everybody who wants to be able to work. So that's another way, that's another, when I talked about priorities, guess what, y'all? That's also a priority. Because I just picture the people, I picture how they are, and I picture the sense of worth that they feel. And this is real. I didn't bring it with me, but I could post pictures and stories of people that I've seen, I've touched, and even if they're working 3-4 hours a day, it has created such value for them that that's indescribable. And that's the type of opportunity we need to create for every single person. The last thing I'll say with that, don't worry. So as a state entity, the part that we got to figure out, if your son or daughter is only working 3 hours a day, what happens the rest of the time? That's not your problem to fix alone, right? So we got to figure that out, and we are working on that because we get it. So that's how we can use, as we rewrite the waivers, to try and create ways to address things like that. But that's coming too. That kind of focus on supported employment, because I tell you, nothing, maybe I could be wrong, but the big impact that I see in people's lives is that if they're working in a job, they feel valued, they're part of the community life, they're contributing in a real way, nothing beats that.
Thank you, Ron, so much. We've had the same path from Philadelphia to Georgia. I've also been here 12 years.
And let me interrupt Kate. Let me say, Kate has been with me in Chattanooga when we met some of those same people as they shared their experience. Thanks, Kate.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for emphasizing employment. I was really excited to hear that, and at the council we want to collaborate with you on that. My question is kind of in a different area. You know, one of the things that happens for the council is that we thankfully get to collaborate with and hear from families. And the thing I keep hearing in various meetings is a real concern around the reduction of the availability of home-based services under the comp waiver, and a kind of trend towards a demand to be in group settings. And I absolutely hear and trust and appreciate how much that is in contrast to your values. And I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about that tension and the direction that you see that going in.
You know what I appreciate about you all in this room? You're not lobbing up softball questions to me. You're keeping it real, and that's what we should be about. Okay, Kate, that's something that has disturbed me as we rolled out the new comp waiver. In fact, I'll be direct. There are folks that stated that we're trying to go back from leading folks towards independent lives, which is part of the vision statement, and back to more constricted type or restricted types of living. Listen, y'all. So when we craft policy, and if for some unforeseen reason, when I talk about the perfect world, if it's interpreted like that, then it's on us to fix. That's never our intent. I want you all to hear that. That's not our intent. So if there's still situations like that where there's still confusion, let me know. We made some changes directly to the Community Living Support Services effective July 1, which I hope will counter some of that. But as we got feedback from providers too, because we heard it, we tried to remedy that, because that's the last thing any of us want to see happening. So as we talk about dialogues, we craft policy, we implement policy, but if it's not working the way it should, then guess what? We got to take feedback and we got to make adjustments. So I hope the adjustments we made July 1st are going to be able to dispel those thoughts.
Okay, so from us as the council, we want to know what we can do for you. As a parent, I'm getting, my phone's blowing up too, Heidi, and I'm also getting it from Parent to Parent of Georgia that they are watching today, and they are happy that you are open to us. Of course, we always wonder how long this will last, because we have lived this, and we appreciate you listening to us, but how can we support you? And we do love the part where you want to self-advocate, because that's what we're here to promote, and especially with the way the world is today. So what can we do to help you? Because you're right, it is all of us coming together for the same reason. It's not all the division of the divisions, which has sadly been the way we have went. So it makes us feel tarnished and a little skeptical, but we're happy that you are fresh and you're seeing my son, someone else's son or daughter, and all the people with a developmental disability, that they have worth. So what can we do to help you?
Okay. Mitzi, thanks for that. That's a question, probably one of the first questions Eric asked me. One of the first statements he said. And my promise to him is, I've taken him up on that we have constant dialogue. So, and I guess this is the part that worries my staff, because I'm just who I am. Let me give you an example. We talk about person-centered living. Okay. Maybe this example will explain me and how I probably need some guidance. Yeah, that's probably the word. I throw it out there. I probably need some guidance. I truly believe in person-centered living. I do. I really do. But there's pockets. Georgia has been doing this, my God, for years. And so when I look at the landscape, and I'm thinking, we should be further along than we are now. Why not? So I've met with various groups the past couple of months to talk about that and how can we get things going. I won't say what I did, But I tossed out an idea to someone, and that person took it, and they just gathered a group together. So I went back and said to my staff, y'all, guess what I did? And guess what happened? Guess what we got to deal with now? I know no other way that we need to hear, we need to have dialogue. If we want to move things forward, we got to work together. So that's my natural tendency. It may be disorganized at times because you have all these people, how do you bring them all together and get things moving forward? I assigned that to somebody else. But anyway, but no, I'm still there because I want us to be able to move forward where people live a full life of independence in the best way possible with whatever supports they need. So it's how we get there. So I say all that to say, I don't have all the answers, but I absolutely value the partnership. So Eric and I will continue. I'll toss out another tidbit out there. Again, I didn't clear this with my staff, so you know, just watch my back with this one. The commissioner, or current commissioner, said to me when I first got in the job, well, she said a number of things to me, but one of the things she said to me is that there's a behavioral health symposium every year. Why don't we have an IDD symposium? Sometimes with me, you just got to drop a hint, and then I just take it and run with it. So, but it wasn't a hint, by the way. It was an expectation from her. And so we're working on that for 2018. But you know what's significant for me? What had to happen? What's a critical component? And I'm laying a deposit with you now. Granted, it's going to be about our professionals within the field and trying to enrich them in some ways. But you know what was important for me? I want individuals and families included. And so it's turned into a 4-day event. Families, individuals are going to be invited to stay the whole 4 days, but the first 2 days are going to be dedicated, just dedicated to individuals and families. So you're going to hear more about that. So I told Eric this too. One of the things I told Eric, and Eric said, Ron, see, Eric is interested. When you say something to Eric, he just sits back and smiles, and he listens, and then a couple of days later, he comes back. Okay, you said X, Y, Z. How are we going to make it happen? So in this case, Erica's his offer to me was, how can we partner with you to get this done? So April Umstead is going to be reaching out to you, and others, because I think that's important. I want your sons, your daughters to have a voice, to have a moment. You all can get to meet me, you can get to meet the commissioner, all that stuff, because you value and you're important. If you hear nothing else from me, did I say that before? But if you hear nothing else from me today, I want you to hear that.
By the way, Ron, my staff has the same problem with me, and that is that I'll just make some decision and they'll have to figure out how to do it.
Okay, we have a question from Facebook from Heidi Fernandez. Her question is, what I hear in the community is that families are needing to have the flexibility with the waivers on when and how to access behavior supports. What policies can we work on together to see this happen? And I believe we also have another question I'll ask after that.
Okay. Heidi, so one of the things we're not that proud about is currently the way behavioral supports is working or not working. So I've engaged a group to come in and to take a look at all of it and to give us some guidance. So that work has already started. If you're interested in giving them some feedback, just shoot me an email, because I'm not going to remember, and I'll get them connected with you.
And the next question we have is from Katie Bailey Chandler. And he said that you mentioned changes to CLS that went live on July 1st. Where can family find those?
Okay. It should be in the waiver manual. And it's on the what? Amendment, Marilyn?
Waiver policy manual out there on DCH website. Under, well, it's under MMIS.georgia.gov. Select provider information, stroll down and click on provider manuals. When you look at provider manuals, look at the comprehensive. It's part 3, comprehensive support waiver manual. We have 2 out there. We divided them up with residential and community living supports together. Then we grouped out another manual that lists supported employment, that service. Then you also have all the manuals out there on the MMI website, but the one is Comprehensive Support Waiver Manual, Part 3, Community Living Support Services.
Not to confuse anything, but Marilyn says, make sure you get that straight. But what I want to add is this. Something else, again, picture lots of balls in here, okay? One of those is this. Marilyn just referenced the provider manual, and we have policies in other places. And this is a work in progress. Do not go out and say, Ron said, it's all here. It's not. It's not. I'm hearing my staff in my head. What we're trying to do, though, is this. Simplify. Try to get things in one place where I can stand up one day and say to you, guess what? It's right there. I'm not going to call where is there, but we're working on it to get everything in one place. If there are links that need to be to what specific policy, then we'll have links created. But that's something else we're working towards. And to something Mitzi said in terms of, she didn't say it this way, but I'm going to say it this way. It's all good and well that I stand here and say all the stuff I'm saying. And come back next year and add more on top of it, but what have I delivered? I truly hear that. What I'll always try to be, I'll let you know where we are. As long as I'm in this position, as long as I have breath in this body, the things I talked about are the things that are important to me, that I will be working on. Call it a value system that through life experience I've developed, through the people that I've met as I walk this earth, that stuff is ingrained in me. Guess what, y'all? That ain't gonna change. And so I know no other way but to follow that direction. And I think it lines up greatly with what my current commissioner believes. And I think, if nothing else, that's probably one of the things for me in taking this job is our current commissioner. She's very supportive. She's probably allowed me too much leeway, but don't tell her that. But she has an infinite trust in what I believe in and what I'm trying to accomplish. So the things, the values, if there are values that you heard from me today, that stuff ain't gonna change.
Director Wakefield, my name is Brenda Liz Munoz. I go by Bran. My first identity is the mother of a tall, dark, handsome young man who is nonverbal and lives with severe to profound autism. He's actually on the 6th floor with my mom right now. I hear you saying that your background is from Jamaica. So my background is from Puerto Rico. So this is from an islander to an islander. I am certain that the last 12 years you have seen the state of Georgia grow in its diversity. And so my question to you is, how do you address diversity and equity and inclusion and issues like serving unserved and underserved families, particularly when it comes to language access and family literacy?
Thanks for asking that question. It's funny. Well, funny is my word. It's not really funny, but you get the picture. When I was in North Georgia, when I worked as a regional services administrator, there was a lady on my staff, and she was from Sweden. And she had a child that was of Spanish descent. I can't remember which country, but she was passionate. And she kept saying to me back then, Ron, what do you, and she was referencing, there's an area in North Georgia that's called Dalton that has a very high bilingual population. And her thing is, we look at your website, we look, Ron, there ain't nothing. So I've heard that. Do I have a solution right this minute? No. We have internal solutions for staff, but that's something that absolutely we need to figure out a way to address. I know we are relying on language lines and things like that, but I get what you're saying, that we need to probably do more. I don't have an answer for that right this minute, but it's on my mind for sure.
I have a question. Who can advocate for themselves and who cannot?
Oh, you're asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you, Ron. I'm sorry, Ron. I can't really straighten the eye, Ron. I'm sorry.
No, that's perfectly fine. You know what? I think every single person should be an advocate for themselves.
Thank you, Ron. You don't understand. Why would you use it like a child?
Oh,
Yeah.
so let me say this to you. You know why I'm in this field? You know why I'm doing what I do? No. Okay. When, and I'm glad I told you my history. When I first came to the United States, my mom worked in a state institution. When I say Philadelphia, it was actually outside of Philadelphia, but you get the picture. And before that, I wanted to be a hotel manager. And I was young. I was young. I just loved the field, and I thought that's what I wanted to be. And then I graduated from college, and I was managing a cafeteria at the University of the West Indies. I was young. I had to be there like at 5:30 in the morning. I was young. At midnight, I'm wrapping up to leave. I was young. And I'm thinking, is this the rest of my life? Is this what my life's going to look like? Because I didn't have one. So my mom worked at the institution. I went to visit her there one day. And there was this lady that, in fact, let me just admit, before that moment, I've never, ever seen somebody with IDD. Never in my life. I was so sheltered. I saw this lady, and she looked at me, and I said something to her. And this is the moment I did it. She understood me. So you believe my accent is probably thick now? You should have heard me back then. I'd go to the bank, y'all, and they'd say, what did you say? One time. What did you say? 2 times. What did you say? 3 times. Eventually I had to write it down. So the first person who got me when I migrated to the United States was who? That lady. She was the first person who got me. And then sequence of events, I was offered to come interview for a job there, working as a direct care worker, and I got the job. This lady, and don't picture this, but I want to be real with you. This lady loved to pull hair. She lived at home most of her life with her mom and dad because they were elderly. She ended up in the institution. And she was frightened. People around her never quite understood her. And the only way she could create a safeguard was to just grab on and plop to the floor. She never did that to me. Oh, but by the way, let me say, I was never always bald. I had hair back then. She never did that to me. Her and I developed a bond. She could say whatever she wanted to say in her language, I got it. She understood everything I said. We were buddies. She wasn't sitting at the dining table with others. Why? Because people were afraid. We sat at the dining table together. And that forged a relationship. And I've had a number of relationships like that over the years. A bond, you all, that makes me who I am. That's why when I talk about your sons and daughters, I know what I'm saying. I've experienced life with them because guess what? They reached out to me and they crafted who I am today. So when I say self-advocate, every single person should be a self-advocate.
Hi, hopefully you can answer or help, okay? Not sure you can, but... Oh, okay. You talked about partnerships.
Yes.
What can you do or are you doing to partner with, let's say, children in care with disabilities